Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars, 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Xanthi Tan, you can call me Xanthi, and today we're talking about the music and sound in Star Wars A New Hope, minutes 56 through 60, which begins with our heroes escaping from Tatooine in the Millennium Falcon and ends with the tragic destruction of Alderaan. There's a lot to talk about, some stellar underscore, lots of Imperial incidental motifs. We have our first hyperspace jump, which is kind of a big deal. And here to help me out today is my guest, Ralph Attanasia.
That's me. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
You are a Star Wars Minute alum, and so
Alumnus. There's just one of me.
Alumnus, and so now you have officially. You're one of the, what's it called? Like, not a dual citizen. I don't know. What's the name? There's, you're in the cadre of guests who have both been on Star Wars Minute and now Star Wars Music Minute.
I've made it.
You've made it. That's right. So you said that like some of your favorite moments are in these minutes. Just to give us a little taste, like what are your favorite moments in these minutes?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff I love in the minutes that we have. I am a big fan of Tarkin. Just in the annals of cinematic villains, he's just so lovely. And Peter Cushing puts so much. He's like Michael Caine in A Muppet Christmas Carol. Like he's. It doesn't matter the thing that he's in. He's playing it as straight as Shakespeare.
Have you always appreciated Tarkin? It's
No.
funny. Like the last guest also was like talking about Peter Cushing, and I feel like Tarkin is never someone I appreciated, but I'm learning. I'm like starting to appreciate Peter Cushing's performance a lot.
It's as I got older, I started to really just like he just maliciously trills his R's at people. He has so much presence, and like he's a monster as well. Like.
Yeah.
out of spite, out of like almost bored matter of fact spite, he destroys a populated planet.
Yeah. Okay. I'm writing down malicious trills because that's just like such a delicious phrase. What's funny is like,
No, go ahead, please.
in the Tarkin book, which of course was written, after A New Hope. It's funny because I feel like everything that it's a whole novel about just Tarkin, and I feel like everything I learned in that book, I also get in his performance. Whereas sometimes I feel like the books maybe like add in things that maybe the performance itself didn't deliver to round out that character, like to make us understand that character more. And I feel like Peter Cushing's performance like really just matches up. Like it says so much.
I have to tell you, I know I read that book. I remember almost nothing except that he fights carnivorous apes that first showed up in the Wildlife of Star Wars book.
Oh, I don't have that book, but that's like the only thing I remember too, and I just read it last year, which was because it was like, okay, Tarkin's being Tarkin. Oh, okay, Tarkin has this whole backstory of like having to, his rite of passage on Eriadu. Okay, that's like that was the takeaway.
It's a very little moment consequence. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, yes, he's very Tarkin throughout. Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
But no, I do see what you're saying. A lot of the new books I think suffer from that.
I disagree.
Oh.
I agree. No. I agree. I agree, but then I think a lot of the old books suffer from that too. So I don't.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Because trust me, I'm rereading a lot of the Legends material now, and does not hold up in my mind like I thought it did.
Yeah, I haven't gone back, but I know that a lot of the books leave me with a profound sense of, and
the Legends books or the new books?
No, the new ones. Like when they're done, I'm just sitting there going, okay.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't want to get derailed, but I'm now really curious which ones you're talking about, because there are some that I really, really feel that way, and there are some that I really, really don't, so we'll circle back to this.
Tarkin was one of those. There was the one with Leia and her friend in the Senate or whatever.
Leia, Princess of Alderaan, or Bloodline, maybe. I read
It
the
might have been Bloodline, I think. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
yeah.
Also, Garindan is in this section, and
Yes.
famously played by John Wayne.
What? Wait, seriously?
The his voice, his audio is dialogue from a John Wayne movie that's sped up.
No way. Okay, I
Hmm.
have to play a clip. Okay, so that is actually where the minutes begins. We're on the streets of Mos Eisley, and we hear these like muted trumpets. It's kind of like film noir-y to me. There's like these muted trumpets, and we hear this like, and
Yeah.
it's the character who looks like Gonzo from the Muppets, but like I think
Bite your
he's modeled
tongue.
after the Black Plague Doctor. That long
Right, like
snout.
a plague doctor mask. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so this is what Ralph is referring to.
Which way? All right, man.
That one, right? The
Yep. That's
yeah.
apparently John Wayne.
Stop that ship.
No way. I that's okay. I don't know how I didn't know that, but y- wow, okay. That's funny
Do
because
you have the
you were
same?
on a Star Wars Minute episode called John Wayne's Will.
That was probably we were probably talking about that. I talk about it
You talk about
all the
Garindan a
time.
lot. Well, good thing you got a
I
Garindan minute.
I love him. I made probably 4 years ago now for a May 4th party. I made a Kubaz mask to wear to the event.
I thought you were going to say it was a cake that you made.
Oh no, 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 no! I don't.
A
If I don't
Garindan.
have to make a cake, I don't.
That would be a good wedding cake, though, don't you think? Like to surprise someone with a black Garindan.
Like, I know you guys love The Bachelor, so for your wedding, I made it's Garindan, the
Garindan.
spy from Star
Yeah.
Wars.
Oh, that's funny. Um, okay, so right off the bat, that is a really interesting bit of sound that we're hearing. And the trumpets in the background, I feel like the underscore that's happening is it doesn't compete with the clarity of Garindan's voice because of the muted nature of the trumpets. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Um,
There's throughout there's this kind of like a lot of the time we'll get that like boom boom boom, like there's a kind of bumbling quality to some of the, like you get it when the Jawas are around.
mm-hmm.
You have it here with these stormtroopers where like it's while this music is like bellicose because they're space Nazis like looking for their prey, it also undercuts them a little bit. It makes them feel like big shouldered and kind of bumping into each other.
Yeah. It it makes their it makes them seem bumbling. Like even
Yes.
though they're on the bad guy's side, they themselves are not too, bright.
Right, they're the goons.
And I think like well, the I've been thinking about that a lot, especially since, Book of Boba just started coming out. And whoa. And
Sorry, we have a really bad problem with swoop racing on my street.
oh, seriously?
Yeah, these kids, they'll just like they get like a repulsor engine, they put a pair of handlebars on it, and they're just up and down the street all night long.
Oh, wow. Well, we can just pretend like it's land speeders on Tatooine. So, uh,
Oh, I was
there.
already pretending it was
Oh,
Star
good.
Wars.
Oh, good. So a lot of the bumblingness of it, I think the muted trumpet helps, and I think also like pizzicato tends to do that. Um, like the strings plucking stuff,
Hmm.
and it might be also the fact that it's like something about the rhythm of it makes it more silly to me. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
there's
why.
almost a there's almost like a Peter and the Wolf vibe to it.
Explain.
I'm trying to think of which character. Who's the oboe?
One of the one of the birds, I think.
Yeah,
Right?
I don't know. There's but it has a little bit of that. Like I always worry that I'm talking out my ass.
No, 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 no. Keep talking. Keep talking. Keep talking.
Do you know what I mean? Like it has that like story for children feel to it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Okay. Oh, the oboe is a duck, obviously. Okay. Okay. Um, so okay, that's really interesting. Okay. There's a lot of
Like
connections happening
it's
in my head
scary,
right now at the
but
same time.
in a way that's not too scary. Like these are the bad guys, but it's okay.
Okay, listeners, I'm gonna make a recommendation right now, and usually when I give recommendations, like honestly, take them with a grain of salt because just because something sounds like it's something else doesn't mean that you're gonna like this something else because it's not Star Wars. Okay, so whatever. But um, Ralph is referring to Peter and the Wolf, which is a piece of music by Prokofiev, and basically it is it's a really fun piece of music. It has a narration that goes with it, and it tells the story of like this boy Peter and this wolf, and there's like lots of other animals that are involved in the story too, and they're each represented by an instrument with like motifs. I don't know if it's like maybe 30 minutes long, and there's a really great recording of it with David Bowie doing the narration, and it's a really good like primer for the different instruments in the orchestra because the different instruments have like really big solos that represent like different animals or different characters in the story. And when they come in, it's like it's pretty gratifying. I don't know. I
Yeah.
really I feel strong about this recommendation. I think Peter and the Wolf is
If
an
you're
enjoyable listen.
if you're a musical Luddite like I am, it makes you feel smart because you're like, oh, no, I can follow that bit of music. It's the same as that character.
But it doesn't feel like to me it doesn't feel like you're having to learn the instruments when you're listening to it. It's a story. It's for kids. You know, it's like David Bowie telling your kids a bedtime story about whatever. You know, I listen to it over and over again sometimes. So that and the reason I bring that up is because John Williams is often thought of as like his Star Wars scores or scores in general are thought of as sort of like orchestration 101. Like if you want to like they're really good representations of the orchestra as a whole and of really showcasing the full range of the orchestra and like each instrument and like all the different shades of using different instruments. And how did we get on this subject? How did we get on this subject? You said something.
We
Oh,
were
you said it
talking
reminded you
about
of Peter and
yeah,
the Wolf, and and yeah, I lost my train of thought. But okay, there's a connection there. But anyway, Peter and the
been
Wolf
there.
is a great piece of music for just getting a full scope of the orchestra. And another one would be Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra. Um, and that one features prominently in the movie Moonrise Kingdom as well. But anyway, really
But
interesting.
that
And John Williams is often thought of from the orchestration perspective, at least in amongst composer circles, as someone whose scores do a similar thing as these pieces of music.
but that feels very in keeping with Star Wars as a whole because it's like, as much as we all love it, it's like baby's first monomyth.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Um, and so yeah, the pizzicato that we're hearing right here, it is. Let me see. Let me play it. It's nope. Let's get a pizzicato. And these, so it's like C sharp, A, C sharp, and they're sort of in quarter notes. So if you pay attention to Frank Lehman's complete catalog of the musical themes of Star Wars, which a lot of listeners are already know that I reference it a lot. And Ralph, I don't know if you're familiar.
Nope.
So it's basically like a musicologist slash, music theorist, Frank Lehman. He basically keeps a running thematic catalog of the musical themes of Star Wars. You can download it for free at
Oh, fun.
franklehman.com/Star Wars. And it lists like from his standpoint what he notices as the motifs, like the light motifs, the incidental motifs, and he keeps track of like when they show up. And there's even like at the end, there's like a thematic census that says like how many times each theme shows up in each film and all of that. I feel like you would really enjoy that as like a piece of reference.
I probably would.
Yeah. And he calls this muted trumpet thing Imperial Troops Ostinato. So, FYI, listeners, if you want to check that out, it is number 5 on the incidental motif list. And the description that he gives is associated with stormtroopers in A New Hope, generally in conjunction with the Imperial motif. And lo and behold, we do hear the Imperials motif afterward, which is like doo 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 doo. So already off the bat, we have a couple of motifs.
I like how pizzicato can often make things sound like sneaky.
Yes.
And so like having that with those big, like that like muted horns underneath, which has like a bigger, kind of sound, it gives the whole thing, like, because they are, like they're going through the alleys, like they're trying to find our heroes. So it's like, it's sneaky, but in a big way.
I actually think it's like, to me, it's flipped, where like the muted trumpets to me don't sound very low end, because the like low end is cut out of them by the mute. So they sound kind of tinny, a little bit tinny, And when the pizzicato is in like cello or like some of the lower instruments, it kind of anchors it, but still like the timbres are different. So either way, it does feel like more full bodied than if it were just one or the other. So
I lack the language to talk about music effectively, and I find myself, I keep trying to express it physically, which people who are listening to this can't see, but like
well, if I notice, I'll try to translate, or I'll try to
oh, please
express
don't.
it. No. Express it. Ralph is moving his arms.
He's making himself big, kind of like a gorilla, I guess.
Seriously though, I'm always curious how other people, or I love hearing how other people describe music though. So never hold back, never hold back. Sometimes having formal language for things makes it easy to skip over, like it makes it easy for me to skip over and like do an actual like, wait, do you actually mean that? Or are you just using a word that's often associated with that thing? So like, I love when other people kind of get me to slow down, and yeah. So that's what's happening there. Anyway, okay, we talked about Garindan. Glad that was already my first note. Great. Yeah, so then the troopers are like, which way? All right, men, load your weapons. And then
nobody does that.
Correct. And then we're in docking bay 94, and
94.
They're like, yes. So Boba, they're like, stop that shit, blast them. And, we get this like sforzando, which a sudden like emphasized forte. Oh my god! Just what a buzzkill to have that on a pizzicato. It's really supposed to be like on horns. So here, the music is like, okay. What happens after here is really interesting. I don't know. I would like to hear your thoughts on the music here before I jump in.
I'm blanking on what happens in
That's
this
okay.
moment.
Actually, I could play that.
Ship, blast them! Chewie, get us out of here! Oh my!
So, first of all, it's very loud. It's very loud.
Yes. And it sounds like there are a lot of, it almost sounds like things are competing with each other in the music, like to emphasize the chaos of what's going on.
I would agree with that. It's very chaotic, and there's like a lot of things happening at once, and it's sort of like in the scene, like you see Han like shooting and kind of running. Like obviously, it's like a very frenetic energy, and it's sort of like, I don't know, quick, we got to leave. Like just, I don't know, it's not really like a thought out methodical plan. It's just fending for your life there.
Right. And you have like, you've got that kind of force theme going on, that da-da-da-da-da, and then like the strings are very, very fast.
They're like,
and it's all, yeah, right. And it's a rising tone. It's ratcheting up.
Yeah, ratcheting. That's a great way to describe it. It is ratcheting up, and the Force theme that happens there is really like I think it's really cool. Okay, so the Force theme is, it starts out, first of all we have this in the horns. And then the Force theme goes like with the rhythm. Actually, I'm not showing all the rhythm here because you would have to hear the other instruments, but it like starts and stops almost. It's like and the strings are like but the Force theme, before it kind of finishes its phrase, it undergoes like these sudden like modulations. So it starts here. So then you would expect that to be the next note, but instead it goes. So I'll play that again. It's like, and it goes down. It goes down a half step, which is like a little bit surprising. And then if you were to stay there, then it would go like that would be the next one. But instead of staying there, it goes up a couple more steps. Then it goes. So basically, it's like it's like adjusting on the fly, just like our heroes trying to maneuver to safety.
Right. It's very clever.
Very cool. It's very cool. And literally, like the theme goes like one step backward and then like 3 steps forward. Cool. It's cool stuff.
It's very clever.
Yeah.
But it is very chaotic.
Yeah, it is chaotic. Another thing I'll note is that it's like, I call this the baby Force theme. That's like, don't go around repeating that. I don't think that's a thing. Just to me, it's a baby Force theme because
Say it, everyone got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Because we're used to the Force theme going like this, but here it goes. Like it kind of skips a couple notes.
Yeah.
And
it's slightly abbreviated.
Yeah, and the first time we hear the Force theme actually at all in A New Hope is, in sometime in the first, 10 minutes. And it's when they're on the Tantive 4, and it's 4, right? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Okay. And we do hear an abbreviated Force theme, and the first time we hear the Force theme is that abbreviated version. So we actually don't hear the full, like what we know as the Force theme now until later with like Luke.
So on the subject of that, I think because of a TikTok of yours, I went and checked out the alternate binary sunset.
Yeah.
I was left with, so there's an alternate cue for that binary sunset moment that I guess John Williams did, and they didn't use it, obviously. Saying too many words. But to me, this might sound strange. It makes that moment feel more about the fact that there are 2 suns than the emotional weight of what's going on.
What does it mean? What does it feel like for there to be 2 suns?
It's like, because it's a sci-fi thing, and it feels like it's drawing attention to the sci-fi thing instead of the emotional beat.
Oh.
I don't know. There's something that's like kind of cosmic-y sounding about that. I think it's a little stringier. I don't remember how it goes now because I just watched it the one time. But like watching it, I feel like the music changes as the shot changes and you're looking at the 2 suns, and it feels like it's more about the fact that you're on another planet, that things are sci-fi, instead of what's going on internally with Luke. But that might also just be because I'm more used to the original musical cue. I
mean, it's just up to interpretation. So, I mean, I can definitely see that. Yeah. So what Ralph's referring to is like, if you go back to episode 6 of this show this season, I'll put a link in the show notes, listeners. We had the binary sunset breakdown, and it was a long haul episode with Frank Lehman, who did the thematic catalog. And we like really broke down the binary sunset theme and the alternate cue. So you can definitely listen to that if you want like more detailed analysis of the alternate binary sunset cue. But binary sunset, aka the Force theme, Originally, it sounded something more like this. So it was a lot more, one might say, ominous sounding. And if I skip forward in it a little bit,
Right about, is that?
like right here,
Yeah.
this is what you thought sounded like two suns. I can definitely hear that.
It reminds me a little bit of the music from the beginning of The Dark Crystal, when there's that, like, all of that exposition and everything's so storybooky.
Don't really, I'm not super familiar with that.
I don't expect you to be, but like it perhaps because it has that association for me, it makes it feel more like it's about
Sci-fi.
this science fiction element rather than what's going on with Luke. I don't know. They're just
I can definitely hear, I mean, now that you mention it, I can hear that.
It's because the binary sunset theme is so warm and so like round sounding. I don't know. It has more. God, talking about music
feels,
is hard.
I think warm. I think you're onto something with warm. Like it does feel more warm to me, and maybe some of it is the French horn, like the solo French horn feels kind of warm than like the creeping strings.
Yeah, I feel like that almost pushes you away, like especially because you're used to, or I'm used to anyway, like in horror cues when they do that like dolly zoom, there's always like a stringy kind of sound. It feels like it's pushing and pulling. And so with that, yeah, like to me, I feel more of the distance, more being pushed away from these suns rather than being sort of enveloped.
I agree with you. The alternate binary sunset cue for me also feels more distancing. Like it feels like the pushing away.
Distancing
from the
is
scene.
the word. That's, yep.
And the binary sunset cue that we ended up with it feels like we are, I don't know, we are like really part of Luke's story.
Right? Like you're invited in a way, or you're wrapped up in this bigger,
it
mellower.
Makes you feel more invested, or like makes me feel more invested, more like emotionally on board, rather than taking the bird's eye view of like, what an ominous thing this all is. What's going to happen next?
Right. That's exactly it.
Yeah. So here, when we hear the Force theme, it is, and it's all like weird and frenetic. It's not, I feel like it's neither distancing nor inviting here. It's just being used in a different context. I don't know. I think the flexibility of its use is really, it's really great to hear. It's really hard to write effective underscore. I feel like, I don't know. Maybe this is just my personal, and I know not everyone feels like this because I've asked my friend, and we were like, if we were co-composing something and one person had to write the theme,
got friends.
we were like, if we were composing something and one of us did the themes and one of us were doing like the action underscore, which one would you rather do? And I was like, oh, easily, I would rather do the themes. That's way easier. And he was like, oh, I would rather do the action underscore. So what I'm about to say is not what everyone thinks. I think it's easier to do themes, and I think it's harder to do stuff like this where you're having to do like really detailed work with the underscore, which is like stuff that's not even going to be high in the mix probably, and it's just so fast moving. But yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I don't have any experience with that.
Well, I too have not scored a Star War before.
No,
So.
I was in a terrible band years ago, and I wrote drinking songs. That was
Some of the best.
no.
Okay, moving on.
Please.
So then we're getting to the interior of the Millennium Falcon, and the weird Force theme is continuing. And Han's like, Chewie, get us out of here. And then 3PO's like, oh my, I'd forgotten how much I hate space travel. Again, the mix is really loud here.
Yeah, but it's an action scene, so.
Yeah. But what's interesting is if you go back and if you listen to the soundtrack that goes along with this, it's like almost inaudible. And it makes sense why it's inaudible. Like the parts of the soundtrack that are turned down here are like the parts that I think would definitely clash or not compete with the voices and also the sound design of the Millennium Falcon. And here, since we're like flying in the Falcon for the first time, it is very important to hear the Falcon. So we do hear the Falcon. It's like our first really quick glimpse of it. It is uncanny how much Galaxy's Edge Falcon looks like this, the interior of this Falcon.
I just got back from there. I went in the end of October it was my third time going to Galaxy's Edge. And the Falcon works every time you see it. Like it works. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Oh, I know.
You feel it.
Yeah. And that like Dejarik table, like it's modeled like exactly after after the Falcon. So yeah, really, really cool. Yeah, I was really beside myself the first time I went there, and I was like, oh, it's the table. It's the table. Oh my gosh. Can we sit at the table? So yeah. So
yeah, we'll have to talk more about that when we're not talking about the music, because I could go on.
Yeah. Same. So pin in that. All right. So then we have, we're kind of quickly going between like the streets of Mos Eisley and the cockpit of the Falcon and exterior shot of like the Tatooine planet, because obviously they're escaping. And Han's like, looks like an Imperial cruiser. Our passengers must be hotter than I thought, which I guess means closer. Or no, hotter meaning
No, like much more trouble. Like hot would be like illicit.
Oh, okay. Oh,
like if you have
does it mean like in
if
demand?
you have hot merchandise, it would be either in demand or illegal.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
So they're hotter than they thought. Yeah.
Okay. So he's like, try and hold them off. Angle the deflector shields while I make the calculations for the jump to light speed, which is going to be our first time going to light speed. Very exciting. So we have some like tech talk here. We have our like, do the bloops, press the thingy, deflector shields, calculations.
Those great lines.
Those words.
Do the bloops, press the thingy.
Yeah. So,
people say George Lucas doesn't write good dialogue, but that's memorable stuff.
It really is. That's something that strikes me about these minutes, actually, is like the dialogue. Really. So then we have like a low pedal point, or I guess you could call it like, by pedal, I just mean like, it's a timpani, and it's the notes kind of at the bottom that keep repeating, that don't change even when the stuff on top changes. It's called a pedal point. So it's going like that, timpani, boom, boom, boom. And then on top of that, we have these like chromatics that are going like, and then it like other notes get added, where it's like it kind of keeps stacking
I know
with
the bit
other
we're talking
chromatic.
about.
Okay, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That is, according in Frank Lehman's catalog, he calls that Imperial Cruiser Pursuit. Makes sense, because that's what's happening. It's an incidental motif, and he describes it as nervous minor horn chords succeeded by chromatic figure. So nervous minor horn chords. Nervous, of course, is up to his interpretation, but a minor horn chord would be like, a minor chord in the horns, succeeded by chromatic figure in strings, and chromatic means like going,
like whole
that,
steps, right?
like half
like
steps.
ABC. Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
Well, yeah.
I thought I knew what chromatic meant. I was so excited, and then I was wrong.
Chromatic, it's like all the accidental notes instead of like. So, in the strings, it's used for the Millennium Falcon escape from Tatooine in A New Hope, and FYI, it's revived in Solo. So, yeah, when we get to Solo season, we'll talk about that again. So on top of that, we have like the Force theme again playing. Lots of competing musical lines happening. And
Yes.
they jump to lightspeed. It sounds amazing. Okay. I wish I remember what it, I mean, do you remember the first time like experiencing this?
Oh, yeah. I was 7 years old, probably 8 years old. I was at the kid across the street was a little older than me when I lived on Staten Island, and I was over there, and his dad found out that he heard that I hadn't seen Star Wars, so he made us all sit down and watch it.
Were you like obsessed with lightspeed? Was that like a cool thing? It was for me as a kid. I was like, I wasn't like necessarily obsessed with it, but like it was something, it was just something that was like part of the lexicon of my childhood. And I don't even know if like, I'm pretty sure I associated with Star Wars, but no, I mean, I definitely did associate it with Star Wars, but I didn't have any sense of like it showing up for the first time in A New Hope or whatever. It just was like a thing I took for granted. Like Lightspeed, we'll just go to Lightspeed. And also growing up near Disneyland didn't help because Star Tours, like you go to Lightspeed all the time. But Lightspeed was
Yeah.
like definitely a fun thing to toss around in conversation and to think about. Yeah.
Now, it always felt as a kid, I don't think I ever really thought about that. I was much more interested in all of the weird aliens. So
All right.
Lightspeed was just kind of how you got weird aliens places.
Lights Lightspeed is one of those things that I took so much for granted that like as an adult learning that in the Star Wars canon Lightspeed wasn't always possible was like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean at this? Why in this book is no one using Lightspeed? Oh, they haven't figured out how to do that yet. What?
It's also very inconsistent whether or not it's light speed or hyperspace.
Well,
Like,
same thing. Well,
because they're going to, because he also says that it'll make like zero point 0.7 or whatever past light speed, but like they're
yeah.
clearly going a lot faster than that if they're traveling interstellar. Like look, physics in Star Wars
True,
doesn't
true.
work, so you can't think about it.
Right. But I
But
think
like it's
light speed and hyperspace are just two different description. Like light speed to me describes the speed. Like we're going light speed. I don't know. And hyperspace to me describes the state of space that you're in when you're traveling in light speed.
right. You have to like go outside of normal space to travel that speed.
Like you're in hyperspace when you're traveling in light speed and you're looking out the window and you're seeing like all this stuff. That's when you're not that's when you're not like, "Oh, I'm in the outer, you're not like I'm in the outer rim here because you're traveling so fast. You're not really in a place. You're in hyperspace."
Right. You're outside of normal space.
Yeah, because to actually say where you are, you'd have to be changing your calculation every point. Anyway, I'm thinking about geometry now. I'm thinking about this book called Flatland.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Flatland.
Nice. Okay, so that happens. We're in lightspeed. We're in hyperspace, and we hear these brass sextuplets, and they sound. I'm not a brass player, but they sound very difficult to play. They're like. So
That does sound difficult to play.
yeah, it sounds difficult.
Although to me, everything sounds difficult to play. So
To me, everything that isn't involves blowing air into it sounds difficult to play.
I see.
Yeah. I think some musicians are like gravitate more toward like being more naturally able to play the wind instruments, and some are maybe like more the instruments that you touch, or like the string instruments, maybe you could say, or like even like the piano. I don't know, the things that you don't have to, basically the things you don't blow into.
Right.
And I'm a things you don't blow into kind of musician.
Oh yeah, because you can't also sing if you're blowing into it.
That's true. That is very true. That checks out. I play violin, piano, guitar. Yeah, that checks out. And also you just I don't know. You can't talk. Also, you can't take sips of water. It's just too hard to multitask when something's in your mouth. It's you can't do it.
And especially if you were like me when I was in my terrible band that did drinking songs, it was very hard to
to drink.
hold and drink beer and also play just half of the accordion. If you were going to be blowing into it, it would be impossible.
It's true. I'm like, I have this like little portable keyboard here, and I'm always like, how can I make it even easier to play? Like I'm like researching, like, are there straps? Like, can I just have it hanging around my neck where it's just like the keyboard's just like right there? Just can I just keep it like strapped to my body at all times? So like when I
That
need
sounds
it,
like you need
it's
an
just right
accordion.
there. Oh, maybe. So then we are back to inside of the Millennium Falcon cockpit, and we hear the ship ambiance again with the Imperial Cruiser Pursuit, which is the doo 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 doo. And Han's like, "Stay sharp. There are 2 more coming in. They're gonna try to cut us off. Why don't you outrun them?" Luke says. "I thought this thing was fast." So obviously,
Watch your
classic
mouth.
dialogue here.
Yeah.
You want to finish it off?
No, go ahead.
Well, you were
I
right.
just
Watch
love
your
that.
mouth, kid.
Watch your mouth. He's so protective of that ship.
Han's lines here are just like, okay, he's like, "Watch your mouth, kid, or you're going to find yourself floating home. We'll be safe enough once we make the jump to hyperspace. Besides, I know a few maneuvers. We'll lose him."
He's a pirate.
His confidence is enviable. And then we get a line that I am finally appreciating, which is, "Here's where the fun begins," which reminds me of that pod racing quote from episode 1.
Now this is
This is
pod racing?
Yeah. I mean, they're obviously not the same exact quote, but they're both like, "And now this is where the fun," like they're kind of, they feel the same. Like, this is where this is the fun thing.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know, whatever.
I feel like doesn't Obi-Wan have a similar "this is where the fun starts" kind of
I
line
think
in
so.
Attack of the Clowns or one of those?
The Attack of the Clowns. So then Obi-Wan's like, "How long before you can make the jump to lightspeed?" And here we have some more tech talk. "It'll be a few moments to get the coordinates from the Navi computer." Luke's like, "Are you kidding? At the rate they're gaining?" And then Han, of course, "Traveling through hyperspace ain't like dust and crops, boy."
Crops. Yeah, all that moisture that you have to dust.
"Without precise calculations, we'd fly right through a star. We'd fly right through a star or bounce too close to a supernova. And that would end your trip real quick, wouldn't it?" Han's lines are the, like,
It's such a weird mix of like, because he's an asshole. I don't know if we can swear on this, but he's a real jerk, you know, like, because
Yeah.
he's a pirate, he's a criminal, he smuggles drugs, and he lives in his truck with his dog, and or Chewie lives in his truck with his dog. Either way, but like, he's a criminal, but also he's very technically proficient, I guess. So you have this weird interplay between like this very matter of fact technobabble and also this like just dismissive, cocky attitude.
Do you think he's technically proficient?
I mean, he's a pilot.
Yeah.
He has got to at least be technically proficient in that realm.
True.
I mean, like, we see him repairing, or at least attempting to repair, the Falcon constantly.
Yeah. I feel like he's technically proficient. I mean, I wouldn't dispute that. I wouldn't consider him like a tech whiz necessarily.
No,
Like, I
no,
think
no,
he's
no.
technically
Yeah,
proficient in the way that like someone tinkers on their toys.
right. He's like a car guy.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm not at all saying that he's like a tech guy, but we know that he's also like got Imperial academic, like Imperial Academy training, at least some. And
Yeah.
you know, he's got a very fast ship that he flies to do crimes in, so he's
And
got to be good at it.
And he definitely does have a handle on his own ship. I will say that.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's just at this point in the movie, Luke seems to not quite trust him yet.
And he shouldn't, because of the aforementioned doing crimes.
So yeah, we have a little pushback. when will it end? Maybe maybe the next movie. Who knows? So here, I think the mix on. So Luke's like, "What's that flashing?" And Han's like, "We're losing a deflector shield. Go strap yourselves in. I'm gonna make the jump to lightspeed." Han doesn't like really seem to care to like explain he doesn't and he shouldn't have to explain right now. This is not
No,
really the time to explain.
he's got this hayseed in his truck while they're trying to
Yeah.
outrun the Nazis.
Yeah. And then when he says, "Go strap yourselves in," I don't know if it was just my ears or something. The mix sounds like it kind of changes there. I don't know. It was just something about like the way his voice sounds on that specific line. "Go strap yourselves in." When listening on headphones, it sounds a little bit different. I don't know.
The mix is a little inconsistent throughout here because like even like a moment from now when he comes back and he's like, "We outran those Imperial slugs," and then the next line like, "Don't everyone thank me at once." It's again a place where like his mix feels like it really changes a lot.
Yeah. Which is, it makes sense. Okay, finally we're getting to the Death Star. And we are introduced with the Death Star motif, which is like. Did that make sense? Do you know what
Yeah. It does, but hearing it on like just piano makes it sound like when the bad guy shows up in a school play.
Well, how is this different? That's
it's
basically
not, but it's like it's the big bad wolf. Do you know?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Oh yeah, much better.
So that is listed in Frank Lehman's catalog, not as an incidental motif, but as a like actual leitmotif. I mean, it does show up quite a bit.
It's very hard not to picture like a very cardboard stage production of Star Wars after hearing that, like with just a bunch of 8-year-olds all doing their best to get these lines out.
Have you seen Jedi Junior High?
No, tell me this is real. What?
It's real. It's a it's a documentary that I thought was a mockumentary the first time I saw it because it's about middle schoolers putting on the Empire Strikes Back musical at their school, and it goes through their audition process. And like it's like one guy's like, "I really want to play Han Solo." Like you have to find it and watch it. It's called Jedi Junior.
What's the choice role in Empire Strikes Back? It's got to be Lando, right?
And the people are like talking. There's like the popular kid in school. This is a documentary, so it's like it's real kids, and like their parents are interviewed, and it's like the cool guy who is like the musical theater director's son gets the role of Luke, and naturally like he is like a more developed singer than everyone else and whatever, and he's the cool guy. And there's like this section where they're like, he gets all the girls. They're like, he's cool, and there's like there's this guy who like wanted to be Luke but ended up as like maybe Chewie or something else. And in it, to be fair, like he is grateful for his role and he gets really into it, but there is some subtle like, like there's some sort of subtle envy toward like the Luke guy. But it's very sweet. I remember
that feeling really well.
That Luke, what a middle school heartthrob.
I mean, not from
not from when your middle school put on Star Wars, but
no.
Yeah. So I will say that this is like the chords kind of go like, it's not quite like, it's sort of like, it's kind of a subtle difference, and it is definitely reductionist because it literally is like a reduction for me to be just like playing it on a synthesizer like this and not being able to demonstrate the full scope of the orchestration and all the like little notes that are happening. But the simplified version of it is reminiscent of the Bond chord, like the James Bond chord, which is okay. Well, the James Bond chord is like, it's a minor major ninth, which means that it's like, maybe I should put on an easier voice. Let me just. Jesus. Okay, so the bond chord is like a minor chord on the bottom, and then on top of that, there's like a major seventh and then a ninth. And so the Death Star motif is not exactly this, but the way that I initially played it before filling out more notes was in the minor major seventh version, which is like this. All I would have to do is add that for it to be the bond chord. So there is something to, I guess, composers using a combination of like minor, major, and then adding like sevenths and ninths, and then like kind of doing an augmented thing. I don't know. These are like a lot of words, but like it's, you know, it's like not just this. It's, and it's not just like, it's like, you know, it's like adding jazziness to it a little bit, but in a specific way. Like with that minor on the bottom kind of keeps it, you know, because if this is one note away from, which is like, to me, very happy jazz.
Right.
And so that's because there's the major chord, major triad. Triad just needs 3 notes. So the base of it is a major triad with this same seventh. This is the seventh because it's the seventh note in the scale of it, whatever. It's just the seventh of it. So if the seventh were on top of a major triad, it would be, but with the seventh on top of a minor triad, it's, so that's, anyway. But anyway, the Death Star motif is not even exactly that either. The Death Star motif kind of goes to a different chord altogether, but it has this feeling also to me of movement. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it. Like I feel like that 3-note motif does so much in such a small space.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but it says a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and it is definitely a repeated mainstay in Star Wars music. So as
Williams putting those chords to work,
as he does, the chord associations that it's very interesting, put it that way. So here, then we get some like delicate sort of music. And yeah, did you hear that?
Which bit is this now that you're talking about?
It's like right as we're transitioning into the Death Star conference room. I'll play it. Yeah, I don't know. It just sounds like, okay, here's the Death Star motif. And then the delicate music. Right here.
Yeah, like tinkling, falling music.
Yeah. To be clear, it's delicate creepy, not like delicate sweet to me. But yeah.
And there's a very wise thing happens in this moment where the score gives a little room to breathe, which if you're doing the performance that Peter Cushing is doing in this moment, you don't want to be competing with it.
Yes. That's true.
Yeah.
That is something that I appreciate about the scene. And most of the Death Star conference room scenes are very consistent in that a lot of them don't have music. Like you are just forced to reckon with the sound of the Death Star ambiance and the sound of their voices. And I always think Imperial spaces or like First Order spaces even have such a creepy vibe to them, have such a creepy like reverberance, like a creepy room sound to them.
Mm.
And
there's a sterility to
exactly.
it. You know, it's
yeah. And of course, Vader's breathing. So those are the sounds of the scene. No music.
I like that the music doesn't really start to come back until it stops being the Tarkin show. Like when he's closing the distance physically between him and Leia, the music starts building up to accompany that. And like it's as those 3 characters, because Vader is standing like ramrod straight directly behind Leia. And so it's as Tarkin comes into that space and you have like all three of them coming together that the music starts coming back in as well. Like it's everything's getting closer visually, and so the music comes up and gets, comes back into play.
That's a good point. The music really comes back when it's more about Leia and her relationship to Alderaan and like her emotions surrounding that. Like when it really comes back in is after Tarkin reveals, like, I have chosen to test this station's destructive power on your home planet of Alderaan. And then we get this like dee, 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 dee. When of course Leia has her reaction, like her act is over, like the little song and dance that is happening between Leia and Tarkin beforehand, which is, both of them being, they're both projecting confidence to each other. Like kind of, it's like they're maneuvering on a chessboard, like.
Right. Yeah. They're oh, dang. Apt similes escape me. What am I thinking of? Not shadow boxing.
I relate.
It's
Oh
like they're like
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay. It's not shadow boxing. There are
we're both sitting here just crossing our fingers against each other like in a sword fight motion.
They're
it's like a fencing kind of thing. Like they're
yeah, I get you.
Embarrassing. Let me tell you, the past 2 years of not talking to anybody like at all, I've lost so many words. My vocabulary used to be expansive, and now it's worse.
You've dropped some many syllabic words. You've dropped some words I've appreciated greatly on this podcast already. I will say I am notoriously I'm bad at idioms. I can't do idioms. I just never remember how it actually goes. So
if you could compare how you're bad at idiom by using some other words or like an idea that's related, how would you do that?
What?
I'm asking you to do the thing you can't do. Like, are you asking for like an idiom?
Oh, that's like the meanest. I'm just joking. How would you describe yours?
No, I'm very mean. I'm with you.
Yeah. So there's shadow boxing, punching, and your foul stench, charming to the last. And Leia, of course, has her British accent on, which Carrie Fisher has said was because she was nervous, and so she put on a British accent for filming. And
I didn't know that. I just figured she was like playing the part, like that was Leia being Leia the statesman and not someone get this walking carpet out of my way, Leia.
I think it is both. I think Leia the statesman became a thing, and that maybe it became a thing because of this original actor happenstance. Yeah. I mean, we know from the books that Leia has been written to have put on airs. She was raised in a family that, raised her to be, a princess, and her family was involved in politics, and she has always been like kind of in the public eye and kind of involved in politics and whatever, young senators and whatever, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And she did meet Tarkin when she was younger. And her first time meeting Tarkin, as described in one of those books, she's like nervous and she's like trying to impress him and put on her best voice and all this, because she's like, I'm meeting the governor or whatever. Yeah.
She's also, it's like I think it's easy to forget too, just how colossally boned Leia is in this moment. Do you know what I mean? Like because we're so used to this story and we think of these characters as heroes, but like she is a very young person who has been kidnapped by, like, again, the space Nazis, and is on their spaceship. They just took her from a cell, and the guy behind her is scary fighter pilot wizard robot royalty.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she would be terrified. I think that was where I was going with this. I absolutely lost my train of
And
thought partway through that.
she's trying to keep the secret of the rebellion, which like is incredibly important. It's like her life mission and rests on her shoulders right now. And she is being interrogated and she sees this super weapon that destroys planets and is trying to manage
Exactly.
what she
That's exactly
says
it. Yeah.
so that and no matter
Neither
like
one of us.
there's like no good way that this could go, and this is like actually like it's such a character, it tells you so much about Leia's character here that when Tarkin threatens her planet and she's like no, and he's like you would prefer another target, name the system, like she doesn't rat out another, like she doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But neither one of us would hold it together anywhere near as admirably in those situations. It like just
No.
forget it.
No. I think I would just pass out or something. I don't know. There would be
Yeah,
no one-liners coming from me. Put it that way.
no, yeah, it's because it's scary.
Yeah, it is very
It's
scary.
very yeah. It's very easy to forget. Like I say, it's easy because we're so familiar with the story to forget. Some of these like what this situation would be like for
Totally
a normal
agree.
person.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's definitely one of the ways that I have took, the movies for granted a little bit growing up. Yeah, because the stories were like they were just familiar stories. It was like watching people do the story. Like it wasn't even until later when people started being like, that was her whole family. Like that just we never talked again about like Alderaan. And I was like, oh yeah. Yeah. That was not just that scene.
I'm on the record. I'm on the record as having said this before on other shows and constantly in my life. But I think one of the biggest mistakes of the prequels was not making Naboo Alderaan. Because then it would have been someplace that we'd seen, that we had some relationship with, so that when it gets destroyed almost offhand by this, and I cannot stress enough, monster, we would feel something. All we really have to connect us to it is Carrie Fisher's reaction to that threat in that moment. That's the beginning and the end. Like we learn that this planet is called Alderaan. It is destroyed within the same minute.
I can see that. Okay. Well, I love the prequels and I love Naboo, but what you're saying
Just change the
doesn't
name.
I'm gonna mull this over. That's not a bad idea. I can see your point is what I'm saying. So here, we have no, Alderaan is peaceful. We have no weapons. You can't possibly blah blah blah. So then we see this view of Alderaan, the planet, like in the window or whatever you call it, the view spaceport viewfinder. I don't know.
Space window.
Okay, space window, and it looks quite like Earth. And here we have this like woodwind line that I am going to have to ask Alex Ludwig about, DSERA guru. It goes, so the woodwinds that are happening in the background here, I would say that it's maybe a DSERA reference. I'm not sure, but if it were, it would be a DSERA reference type 3. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, and I saw you talking about this briefly, but I couldn't. I didn't understand what you were getting. Like I have no idea.
It's fine. Like it's such a weird thing to talk about. DSERA is basically this set of 4 notes. It's been reduced to now, but it was like a Gregorian chant that was based on a poem called Day of Wrath, or Dies Irae, which means Day of Wrath. And it goes like, Dies Irae, Dies Irae. And the Dies Irae motif in various forms is like littered throughout, peppered throughout, dotted throughout, I don't mean it in a bad way, throughout film, music, and like music in general. It's like putting in a Dies Irae reference is like a very common thing. to do. And Star Wars, the first like big spotlight Dies Irae theme that Star Wars is known for is the one on the Lars homestead when Luke sees his burning, aunt and uncle, and we have the Force theme going like. Anyway, I'm doing it wrong, but there's a big Dies Irae reference there. Um, anyway, so Alex Ludwig was a guest on this show, and we talked about he keeps a running list of the Dies Irae references in films, and so we talked about what makes something a Dies Irae reference because it's not always the exact notes. Oops. What am I doing with my life? There we go. Jeez. Making Christmas. That's Dies Irae. Sometimes it's not those exact 4 notes, and sometimes it's a different set of notes, but the context of it makes it very possible that it still is a reference because I don't know, it's one of those things that like sometimes the reference is very on the nose where it's like a very full-on reference, like in The Shining. Like The Shining is a very obvious full reference of Dies Irae, and most films and most things do a much more subtle version of it where it's like it could be but it could not be. It's just like you can read into it or you cannot. But anyway, what I'm saying is here when we're about to see Alderaan destroyed, and usually Dies Irae is associated with something ominous is going to happen, or like Day of Judgment, or like something like this basically is going to happen. I think one might be able to read into it here. And I would say I would read into it a little bit here because it reminds me of some other John Williams Dies Iraes. But
it doesn't feel like a long walk to get there for sure in this moment.
Yeah. And I think the subject matter of what's happening on screen really elevate. If it weren't for that, then I would say probably not. But like because of what's happening, it makes me think maybe yes. But, not confirmed, just interpretation. So then Leia's like, Dantooine.
You heard it here. Confirmed.
Yes. Dantooine. They're on Dantooine. Or she says Dantooine. I always thought it was funny that Dantooine was like almost like Tatooine. Like that part.
Right, like it's got to have it makes it feel like there's a little bit of world building, like maybe there's a common word root.
Yeah.
Like a linguistic.
And so then we're going to start seeing
something.
like Tatooine and whatever. I thought that was always interesting. And as a child, I remember thinking like, oh, she's lying because of the way she like changes the pronunciation of it. Like it sounds like unsure. She's like, first she says Dantooine, and then she says Dantooine, and then I hear like Dantooine. I don't know. There, I hear an almost faint Imperial march in the background, but not really. It's like so faint. I think I'm just reading into it because of other chords that are happening. But anyway,
right,
Tarkin's
because the march itself doesn't happen in this movie.
Correct. But a lot of the chord progressions do. So it's like precursors. So then Tarkin's like, you see, Lord Vader, she can be reasonable. Continue with the operation. You may fire when ready. And Leia's like, what? And I feel like she breaks her accent a little bit. Yeah. Tarkin's like, you're far too trusting. Dantooine is too remote to make an effective demonstration. But don't worry, we'll deal with your rebel friends soon enough.
Rebel friends. Like he
rebel
takes the
friends.
time. Yeah.
We will deal with your rebel friends soon enough.
That's why I say he's a monster. It just like, you're far too trusting. Like he just thinks it's funny that he's going to extinguish the lives of everyone and everything on that planet. And not even funny enough to like do it. Like the fact that he thinks it's funny sucks.
Yeah.
But the fact that he doesn't even think it's funny enough to do like a sinister villain laugh or something, like it's funny the way like, like, oh, you're like dressed like a combination of Jay and Silent Bob. That's funny. Like recognizing it's funny, but not laughing. He's a real dirtbag.
Well, it's his actions that make it's not only his actions that make him scary, it's the performance that he puts on with regard to how he feels about the action. It's like the performative or not, whatever. It's the performative
Yep.
nonchalance and like insignificance of
Right.
each decision is like, oh, I'm doing this. All right, the next thing. It's like it doesn't even faze him.
Yeah. It's just absolutely monstrous. I'm allowing myself to get sidetracked by Peter Cushing when we're supposed to be talking about music.
Well, Peter Cushing. Well, we're talking about soundscape, and dialogue delivery is a very big part of the soundscapes of films. And I think there is something like that we've talked about in other episodes where it's like the cadence of the certain actors' voices adds a lot and is a very characteristic part of these films, and to the point where a lot of people can't separate the music, like the soundtrack as a whole, from the dialogue that happens with it. Yeah. Pete is one of those people. Pete from Star Wars Minute, of course. When he hears the music, he's like, "Where's the dialogue?" He's like repeating the lines with it because they're all baked in together.
Yeah, I have that with Beetlejuice. Like I can listening to the score to that movie, I can hear like line for line what's going on in those scenes.
Impressive. I
But
love Danny Elfman.
I do too. What were we talking? Oh, that's what you were talking about. How the dialogue and the sounds play into the music. I feel like Vader's breathing kind of melds seamlessly into the music in this part. Like I noticed that watching it.
Yeah. And Vader's breathing was originally going to, like, the original design for Vader's breathing was going to be like various clicks and various, like, I don't know, just sounds of like his mechanics happening with his breathing and other, things, his heart pumping and everything. And Ben Burtt was like, they had to take all of that stuff out because Vader was just starting to sound like, he just sounded like a whole operation room. Like he just sounded like Vader, it was stripped down to just the breathing because it was too much to have him just like have all the clicks and all the other stuff happening
It
too.
would be very distracting.
Yeah. So we have the breathing, and here Vader's like commence primary ignition, and here I swear we hear another kind of. This is very subtle. Okay. And the Death Star sound, the Death Star power sound when is so it's so specific. It sounds like an 808 like bass, like boom, like drop.
I have there.
What?
I don't know that this would be an appropriate anecdote for this program, so I'll probably tell you later.
Okay.
About the Death Star power up sound.
Okay. Death. No. Okay. After we're done, I'll ask you. So that happens, and then Luke's like, and then we're back to the Falcon. So we're getting to this is the last scene of these 5 minutes, and we're back to the Falcon, and this is, of course, when after Obi-Wan has felt a disturbance in the Force, and he's like, I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced. I fear something terrible has happened. You better get on with your exercises.
Yeah, he was real shook by it for a second, and
I think it's in line, though.
yeah,
Because the Jedi aren't people who are like totally derailed by tragedy.
but I think he plays it like I think he's actively playing it off in the moment. Like you can see it in Alec Guinness's performance there. He's like just
Like he doesn't want to, like he knows something really bad happened, but doesn't want to show how bad he knows.
Yeah, and also at this point, like Luke has shown just how whiny and useless he is so many times at this point.
So he's trying to be a good teacher.
Yeah. Han literally had to slap his hand away from the controls just like a scene ago.
Like Grogu.
So that moment, that moment is hilarious to me. It's like, what's that flashing? And like he gets swatted away.
But he's also never left Tatooine.
Yeah, he is a credulous, wide-eyed, corn-fed hayseed. Like he is just such a country mouse.
Doing his best in the galaxy. one could
Right.
say.
It's like, here you go, kid. Here's a laser sword. Don't look straight down the barrel of it.
He does pretty well with. Oh, speaking of laser sword, here after after Ben's like, you better get on with your exercises. Then we hear, of course, the lightsaber ignite, and then he continues on with his exercises. And we are still at this point following the unspoken rule of the first Star Wars film, which is no music when there's lightsabers.
I didn't
And
know that.
that is being followed here. It's like, I don't think it's an official rule, but we don't. But I do think I'm pretty sure I should find a source for that. I should find the source that I read, because I definitely have like heard something where George Lucas or Ben Burtt has said like that George Lucas didn't want there to be music during the lightsaber introduction, at least, of lightsabers, because the lightsabers themselves were so musical and we have to hear the lightsaber sound. So
It's one of the most iconic sounds in film history.
exactly. And so in this film, so far, every time that we've heard a lightsaber or seen a lightsaber on screen, there's no music with it. It's just let the lightsaber be.
I
Yeah.
never noticed that before.
The first time we hear music with a lightsaber in this film is later on. But so far, even an hour in, we have only heard lightsabers out in the open.
Yeah, like I think the probably after Ben dies, there's like a musical swell when Vader's saber is still ignited. But yeah, you're right. Even when they're fighting, it's just the sounds of the lightsabers and their dialogue.
And that has a way of like, when you're talking about the alternate binary sunset cue having a distancing feeling, I feel like the lack of music has a opposite of distancing feeling, where it's like suddenly you're there. You're like holding your
Well,
breath.
exactly. It's a bit more verite. Like any of the because music in a scene is artifice. It's not the way things are in reality. So when you strip that away, you're exactly right. Everything feels more like you're there.
Yeah, I think that's important to say, or I think that's an important thing that you said, that music is artifice, and music in general, when there's music on screen, it is a little distancing. Even if the music does make you feel sort of emotions or whatever, music still is distancing, because it's another device, it's another filmmaking device that is, another lever that's being pulled, and it might draw us in emotionally, but not necessarily like in a real time way. It's sort of like in a more big picture way, or in a, I don't know. I don't want to speak for everyone, but there's something about
No,
the
go ahead.
immediacy of no, there's something about the immediacy of no music that is, like, what's it called when, I don't know, what's it called when you're not like naked, but like vulnerable. It's vulnerable. Like it's vulnerable when there's no music. You're kind of just like, yeah, I don't know how else to describe that.
No, that I do understand I think I understand where you're coming from there.
Cool. So I'll just pretend like that made sense.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I really that's fascinating. It's also something that like in later movies totally did away with.
Maybe,
Like
perhaps.
I mean, Duel of the Fates is a really good example of how that's like that doesn't carry on.
Oh, true. Yeah, it's not like it's not like a rule, but I would have to watch all the movies again and and pay special attention. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, because it might still be a guideline that is. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure, but I would say if any time they were going to stick to it more, it'd probably be in the first movie where they're introducing the sound. But now that everyone's familiar with the sound, maybe it doesn't matter
Yeah.
as much.
No, I think that's probably what happened, because I'm like running through scenes in my head. Like I know that there's definitely music when he uses his lightsaber in the cave in Hoth. There's definitely music playing in the final battle in Return of the Jedi. I think it's really in this movie.
There's also something to the fact that like we are following Luke on his journey, and he himself is not yet familiar with the lightsaber. So when we are basically familiarizing ourselves,
Interesting.
it's like mirrors how Luke is also familiarizing himself. So these scenes that we see the lightsaber so far, they're like all training scenes, or like scenes where he's like looking at it for the first
Right.
time, or like things like that. So it's like it's really like one-on-one time with the lightsaber. And maybe if we go through other movies and the different training scenes, or like the scenes where like people are really getting to know the lightsaber for the first time, maybe a similar thing would be in play. But I really like that, like pulling away of music, especially in those introductory scenes. It's kind of like how when we were first introduced to Tatooine with the droids, when we first land on Tatooine at the beginning of the movie, there's also no music. There's no music for like 5 minutes on Tatooine. It's just like
That
the
was
creaky
probably a tough
joints and
5 minutes of
everything.
this show.
No, it was a really good 5 minutes. Thank you very much. No, I really loved. I no, like I'm obsessed with the fact that there's no music on Tatooine. They could have like immediately given us like they could have immediately put score there that would have told us how to feel about Tatooine. But instead, audiences are like, we've never seen this place before. We're just as confused as the droids, and so we're like right with it with the droids. We're forced to reckon with the creaky joints that 3PO is complaining about. We are feeling the barrenness of it. With we don't have the space of music to fill our void. I'm someone who sometimes I'm like, there's too much silence.
Oh,
We just, I
this
need
is
something. Yeah. So
all of this is making me think of Frankenstein.
how so?
There's no music in that movie.
Really?
In the original, the
Is
James
it?
Whale Frankenstein, there's no musical score.
Was it a silent movie?
No, it's a talking black and white movie. The one with Karloff as Frankenstein, like the original James Whale Frankenstein. There's no musical score, and when you watch it, there are long stretches of it that just feel normal. But then there are the times when the score would kick in another movie, and it doesn't happen.
That sounds really
And it's
awkward.
like it's watching, you can feel it. You feel the moments when like it should start and it doesn't. If you haven't seen it, you should just for the experience of watching like a feature length horror movie that has no musical score.
That sounds really, really intimidating. Uh, but I hope that one day I can sit down and do that. I would need a buddy to do it with me. I would need someone to sit next to me so I don't get distracted. But it is an experience that I would like to have. So listeners, I'm just kidding. I'm not inviting myself. I'm not opening myself up like that. So
Next time I'm in California.
okay. So then the final thing we hear after Han's, last cocky line, well, which I think is really funny and like 70s, you can forget your troubles with those Imperial slugs. Which sounds like, I know he's saying you can forget about your troubles that you were having with those Imperial slugs, but it sounds like you can forget your troubles. Here, have some Imperial slugs to forget your troubles with. That's what it sounds like to me.
Like it's an advertisement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forget your troubles. Imperial slugs.
With
available
Imperial
now.
slugs.
Yeah.
Just holding one up.
Yeah. That's how the line reads.
Other
to me.
slugs got you down.
Yeah. Picture of Jabba.
You've tried the rest. Now have the best. Imperial slugs.
Yeah. So, Han the salesman.
Man, you can, and like, it's so evident that he's expecting everybody to like
thank him.
congratulate. Yeah.
He's
He's
like,
just like to be
well.
fawned over.
Yeah. Everyone,
He is a
forget your
legend
troubles.
in his own mind.
Don't everyone thank me at once? Oh, that is his line. That is his next line. Okay.
Yeah.
His next line is, don't everybody thank me at once. Anyway, we should be at Alderaan in about 200 hours. And then the final thing we hear is the amazing siren. It sounds like a siren. It's like, and then the Dejaric sounds.
Oh, those little monsters. You ever try to play Dejaric?
No, I still have to play it. Do you have it?
It's
Do you own
horrible. I bought a Dejaric board when I was at Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah. Well,
It's terrible.
why
It's
is it
a
terrible?
game. So you have like 4 monsters or 5 monsters on each team, right? Each side, but none of the. So there's the same 4 sets of moves. Like each monster has its own set of moves it can do,
Okay. Like chess?
but they don't look. Yes, like chess pieces, but the monsters on my side don't look like the monsters on your side.
But how do you know which ones match up? Oh no.
There's a cheat sheet that you that has like all the the way each monster moves.
Oh
But
no.
it's like, if I have a Mantelian Sevrip and you've got the other guy, but they both of them are the big monster, so they both move the way the big monster does. and they like tried to make them move the way that they move, the nonsense way that they move in that scene in the movie. So like the yellow one does like a big jump one way and another way, and it's like it's just
Oh, wow.
unplayable.
Well, it sounds like the instructions would just be really hard to keep track of. And I don't do
Yeah.
instructions.
No.
So,
Thankfully, the other side of it, that board is a circular checkerboard that has little Imperial and Rebel checkers. So
checkers is good.
yes,
What's funny is
checkers.
like I'm someone who like throughout my life, people have always told me like, do you play chess? You seem like someone who would play chess. You should play chess. You would really love chess. I feel like you're really good at chess, Chrysanthi. And the serious, like the God honest truth is I don't like chess. I don't have a patience for chess. I suck at it. I'm not a chess person. Everyone thinks I'm a chess person and I'm not a chess
Well,
person.
you're very poised and you come across as very intelligent. I assume that
I'm analytical. That's a thing, but I'm not, but I don't care about, but not in the chess way. I don't know.
If you're at all like me, because I also don't like chess because I'm not a good strategic thinker.
Yeah, me
I find
neither.
I react to things more than plan ahead, which is apparently how you lose at chess.
Yes. And also I get caught up in other parts that are more fun about the game and then don't really, and which is why I kind of suck at like Scrabble, which is like, even though I'm great with words and like, I don't want to calculate the number scores of whatever.
Yeah.
I want to make cool words, and that's my priority is making cool words. But
right. You're like,
yeah,
I can spell palindrome. I have nowhere to put it, and I don't know where the points, and I just want to put down the letters.
yeah. So anyway, yeah. So that's the end of those minutes.
Oh no.
I know, so sad. On Star Wars Minute podcast, episode 51, you were a guest. You mentioned a couple things
I was a guest
about
during this minute. One of these minutes? No, we did 56. Oh, right.
I meant on Last Jedi. Were you on Star Wars Minute for A New Hope?
No, I missed A New Hope, but I came back for a weekend edition episode where I did a minute from the special edition of A New Hope.
Oh, interesting. I didn't discover. So, okay. I think a good chunk of listeners of this audience are Star Wars Minute listeners, and then a lot are not. So, people who I'm talking about Star Wars Minute, the podcast that sounds a lot like Star Wars Music Minute, but goes through the Star Wars episodes 1 minute at a time. The Star Wars films 1 minute at a time. And Ralph and I have both been guests on that show, and I started this show as sort of like a way to do the same thing, but with the music.
It's like a companion piece.
So yeah, it's like a companion. Yeah. And that's why last season I did Last Jedi, because they were doing Last Jedi. And so I wanted to be synced up. And I'm doing A New Hope now because they already did A New Hope in 2013. And so
oh my God,
I want to go. I'm going back through the movies because I want to. So on that episode, Pete and Alex gave this podcast a nice shout out. And you said it was a good thing that I go 5 minutes at a time because 1 minute at a time would be, in your words, infuriating.
I could see
now
that.
Now, how do you feel about that now that you've been on this show? Do you still agree?
Yeah, it's a little harder to, especially when you're someone who lacks the musical language. It's a little harder to keep track of it, to do a 5 minute chunk, but it's much more rewarding because things can be set up and pay off. You can listen to more of the music. Whereas, if you have
more context.
Yeah, in a minute where you're just talking about, if you're doing just a minute, but of every aspect of that scene, there's a lot more to talk about because you have the music for sure, but you also have what's going on visually. You have all the other stuff. Whereas if you're just looking at the sound aspect, or if you're just listening to the sound of a minute, you've stripped away.
Although I feel like you can go infinitely, you can go down. First of all, I agree that 5 minutes is better because there's more, like, there's just more of a through line. There's more, there's more of a through line for certain things. However, I think if it were a minute at a time, I know that that time could be filled up with just increasing amounts of infinite detail. And so
Sure, you could get
that's a
really
reason.
granular.
Yeah. So it's a good thing I don't do that.
That's, you know, like, then
I
how
will
much of
do
your
that.
audience do you retain?
So anyway,
That's as like as a kind of ADHD sort of person. I run into this all the time where like I never know what other people's like base level of knowledge about all of my weird niche obsessions are. So I always
Same.
find myself setting up way too much and then worrying like,
oh my,
am I coming across as mansplaining this? Because like I just never know, you know, like what people know about LARPing. You know,
I've
where
talked
do
about
I
this in
start
therapy
with that?
so many times because I feel like I over explain some things and then some things that to me are just like so instant, I just like breeze right past it. And then I don't have like a good meter of like when I need to slow down more and when I can just really speed up and skip that whole thing. And I'm very self-conscious when I listen to this like when I listen to, like, it's really hard for me to listen to this podcast because sometimes I'm like, I'm infuriated with myself for potentially over explaining something and being like, what do I think my listeners don't know anything? Or like, I'm like holding everyone's hand, but then sometimes I breeze past something and I'm like, that was probably irresponsible to just throw out that word. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a good
That's
gauge of that.
is one of the things that that I get not frustrated. Um, I don't know when I go on to Star Wars Minute and talk with Alex and Pete about Star Wars, I feel like I can just go, and it's very frustrating because they are pains in the ass because they're
Elaborate.
very so like
I
I
hope they're
finally feel
listening.
like I'm in a place where I can communicate freely, and I just go up, you know, like if I want to, I just smack the microphone. If I want to just start talking about, you know, like Feltapern Travag, I can just do that without having to lay down, you know, all this other stuff. And then there will, like, the two of them, like Statler and Waldorf, just have these bits that they launch into constantly. And it's like,
Wait,
you
like
guys,
what?
I felt like I could talk.
They're hosts.
They are
See,
hosts. They're such smart asses.
they're good hosts too, because when they've been on this
They're
show,
great
they
hosts.
start like asking me questions, and I'm like, wait, you're the guest. Like they start redirect, which as I mean, I don't know, listeners, if you're, I can take feedback for sure. Let me know if I over explain stuff sometimes. Please know that it's unintentional. I'm I'm not that great at that yet. But yeah, I kind of envy like having their like bits. I'm like, I need to have more like bits for when I'm just start like string like when I just start going on like a bender of words. I need to have some like redirect. I need to have like a programmed bit that just like gets me back on track. And so yeah,
Good luck with that.
yeah, I know. But we're on the same wave. I think we're on the same wavelength with a lot of the stuff. So the final thing is the Star Wars Music Minute Questionnaire. I'm going to ask you 3 questions and you're going to give me your answers. Imagine that. So question number 1 is, in exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like?
So I realized that
And you
because I
can
had
ask,
thought about this.
you can ask for previous. Oh, okay. You've already thought about it. Cool.
Yeah, I had thought about this, and I realized that what I was answering is what does the Star Wars music sound like, and not what does Star Wars sound like.
Well, okay.
Because what I came up with was in exactly 3 words was sweeping, expressive proclamations.
That's great. Do you still stand by that?
Yeah, it's very difficult to
Oh, I know. That's the point.
and then
Well,
like I wanted also to like flow grammatically instead of just saying like spaceships.
comma, yeah. Spaceships and blasters. So what was it?
Yeah.
Sweeping.
Sweeping expressive proclamations.
Awesome. You know what
And
Pete
I think
said?
part of the What did Pete say?
Aunt Beru's kitchen. Oh wait, no, or was that Alex? I don't know. It was one of them. What were you gonna say?
No, that's just like, yeah, I don't know the music, because I was trying to think of like, because sweeping for sure, like there's definitely there's like a flow, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
the music of Star Wars, like, and a lot of it, obviously not when it's like being chaotic, like in that Falcon moment that we were talking about earlier, but like there's a lot of just like being carried along by the music. It's so inextricable from everything else that's happening, and it does carry you through the story. You could watch the movies with the music and no dialogue, and you would still have 85% of it.
Yeah. Yeah. George Lucas did want this to be like a silent film.
And it works. I mean, it's very clear, you know, when your villain is 7 feet tall and dressed all in black with a black cape in a black mask, you're like, yeah, no, I get it. He's the bad guy.
Yeah. And when there's a hero, when there's someone with, I don't know, luscious hair looking at two sun, looking at, like when there's a big sunset scene, they're not giving that to the villain. That's probably going to be
No.
a hero if there's an extended sunset scene looking out
And
on the vista.
you know, we talked about that briefly earlier with like how sterile all the Imperial settings are, and how like forbidding and technological they are, and like all the Imperial officers are dressed in gray. The stormtroopers are like robot skeletons. They're all white and black, whereas like our heroes are more, you know, Luke is in like earth tones. Leia is
Yeah.
Leia's portrayal is pretty sexist actually, because they're visually she's like portrayed as like pure, like in this white simple dress and everything, but
Musically too, a little bit.
yeah, she also doesn't have a blaster,
Yeah.
which bothers me. Like every time you get a Princess Leia action figure, she's always got a stormtrooper blaster that she picked up from one of them. Like it's never Leia's blaster.
Although she does serve her, well, anyway, tangent, but
Yeah,
Leia's
I
great.
get total tangent. What? Why the hell was I talking about any of this?
Sweeping. Okay. You said
Yeah,
sweeping, expressive,
expressive. Yep, expressive.
proclamations.
Like you think of just all of the characters' themes, like Yoda's theme. You know, like has this like. It's weird how youthful Yoda's theme sounds, considering how old he is.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely sounds youthful. Yep.
But he's very puckish. You know, he's like even though he's very aged, he is kind of ageless.
Yes. I think Yoda has a youthful quality to him.
He's like a fey creature.
Yeah, I see what you're
I
saying.
mean, he's designed to look like one. He's like a little goblin fairy.
He's like a little
not
Muppet.
really a science. Yeah.
Yeah. Proclamations.
Right. Yeah, I mean, proclamations, like it's the music is so like it can be so I don't want to say
Proclamatory.
orchestral, because proclamatory is a great word. It was one I was going to use, but I
don't know
did.
if it's a word.
I said proclamations. Declaratory?
I don't know.
It's like if you were having
It proclaims
like in an
things.
arena, if you were going to open up the gates and have like, you know, the fighter walk out, like there's just
The music takes a stand when it needs to.
yeah, it's always
It
when
proclaims.
it's got to shout something, yeah, it shouts it out. I don't know a better way to say it.
I think that's a great way to describe it. I'm going to think about that because you're right. I mean, I like all three of your words.
Yeah, if I was going to say what Star Wars sounds like, they wouldn't even be words. It would just be like, like it's space sounds.
Could you spell that?
Not well.
Okay, great. Number 2, what is
I
something
feel like there'd be a schwa or a tilde or something in there, and I don't know how to use those.
A former guest has given their answer as basically something like that. All right, so what's something related to Star Wars music or sound that you want to learn more about?
Oh, God.
Or that you have a curiosity about?
So the problem is, I guess, the problem with this question is that I've like immersed myself to such a like molecular level in this stuff that like anytime I find out something I didn't know, I'm surprised that there was something to find out.
I know what you mean.
Like, oh god, when and I talked about this
So is
in
your answer nothing because you know everything?
I don't know.
kidding.
No, it's always like it's just what comes next is always the answer to that. Like not so much with the sound or the music. It's I have like this Dunning-Kruger effect where no, that's the wrong thing. I don't know enough about music to know what I don't know.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay. I want to dig into that a little bit. What are the things that when you hear them, you're like, that sounds like the type of thing that is interesting to me?
Well, that's just it's stuff like you were telling me about like Dies Irae or like all of the ways like these different incidental motifs come into play. Like I sit there, I listen to it, and I go, "Yeah, Star Wars music is good."
Okay. Okay.
And that's the depth of.
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to, how am I going to write this?
It's the things. I
Just,
guess that would be it. I would like to know. Nope.
okay. All right.
Got no words.
That's all good. I'm just going to write like, just want to know more.
Yeah, that would be the like. I feel like I know a lot about the sound design because there are all those great. There's like documentaries and stuff. Like Ben Burt is a really interesting character, but the music itself, I guess I don't know much about beyond appreciating.
It sounds like you appreciate hearing other people's analysis of it so that it kind of orients you, it kind of like grounds you in
It gives me some context
of knowing what even the questions that you can go down are. Because it's like if you don't know the categories for things, then you don't know what to think about them. But once you have the idea, the seeds planted in your head of different cross sections to even look at things, that like opens up. It's not like about learning something specific. It's about learning that some people are even considering the rhythm, and some people are like really finding things in the harmony. Some people are finding things in the orchestration. Okay, I'll figure it out.
I wish there was like a podcast that I could listen to that got into this in like real detail for, I don't know, like 5-minute chunks of the movie at a time.
If only. So
Star Wars Minute. I'll just talk to Pete and Alex.
Okay, last question.
Okay, my feelings.
What's a score? No, I'm doing a bit. Don't worry. What's a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars?
We were talking about Beetlejuice earlier.
Oh, Beetlejuice. Is that your answer?
That's a good answer.
Cool.
But I don't know. I was born in 1984, and so like I hit that weird sweet spot in like the late 80s, early 90s when a lot of movies were playfully creepy. Like there was a lot of play with like weird darkness. Like Tim Burton was doing a lot. There was the Addams Family. There was like all of this stuff. There was a lot of creepy stuff aimed at kids, and so a lot of the scores that really resonate with me are things from around then. So like the Addams Family movie score, like the fucking the Gomez and Morticia love theme from that movie.
Do you know who the composer was?
It's not a name that like I recognize from other things.
But what year was this What year was the Addams Family movie? There's just like I feel like so much Addams Family stuff.
1990.
Okay, I'll find it. So it's 1990 or 1989. Okay, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I didn't really make the connection between that time period and creepy movies aimed at kids. But hearing it framed that way, I guess, was Edward Scissorhands around that time too?
Yeah, but there was also, like Are You Afraid of the Dark on Nickelodeon? There were the Goosebumps books, and then later the TV series. I just feel like there was this richness of spooky stuff either aimed at family audiences or for kids that like you lost for a while. I do feel like it's coming back a little bit. Like people are realizing it's okay to frighten kids in kids entertainment, that they actually kind of like it.
Interesting.
So yeah, I don't know. So I guess
I'll put
I'll stick with
Beetlejuice and
Beetlejuice. That's a
okay.
good answer.
Okay. I mean, I can put both. I'll put both.
Yeah.
Okay. Beetlejuice and Addams Family. Awesome. Um, well, before last thing is listeners, the themes in this were the Imperial Troops Ostinato, Imperials motif, Imperial Cruiser Pursuit, the Force theme, possible Dies Irae, you could read into it, and the Death Star motif. And if you want to learn more about the themes, you can download Frank Lehman's catalog at franklehman.com/Star Wars. If you're following along on the soundtrack, this is the Millennium Falcon / Imperial Cruiser Pursuit, Destruction of Alderaan, and or Mouse Robot / Blasting Off.
I was going to ask you about something earlier
Okay.
and I totally forgot. It's probably too late now.
No.
Have you heard the Ukulele Force album?
No? What is that?
This is it's pretty hard to find. I had a physical copy of it for a while.
Ukulele Force? Is it like a cover album?
It is. It's ukulele covers of a bunch of different Star Wars themes. You would have heard the Imperial one if you listen to Star Wars Minute, because when they do their like plugs,
oh yeah,
there's a like tuba, ukulele, and recorder cover of the Imperial March.
Okay, yeah. It's hard to find though, so you're just putting this out there. Good luck.
I'll send you the. I can send you the files of it so you could listen to it. But that reminded me of the bit with the stormtroopers going through when we were talking about how there's almost like a bumbling kind of sound to it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You gotta listen to that. Also, the cover of Han Solo and the Princess that they do is like, it's like very winsome and kind of heartbreaking, and partly because I came across it right around the time that Carrie Fisher died. But yeah, you should give that a listen.
I'm very curious to hear
a weird little thing.
Han Solo. I'm really curious to hear Han and the Princess in that context. So yeah, cool. Where can people find you?
Oh golly, well, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Cake Boss Ralph, but it's not fun. All I do is just scream about politics anymore, so don't follow me there. But you can see me on Buddy vs. Duff on Food Network, the Buddy vs. Duff holiday. Buddy vs. Duff holiday just ended a few weeks ago, but we make some of my favorite cakes that we've ever done. And I'm on other shows sometimes.
Is that a current show? Can you believe
Buddy vs. Duff?
I've never ever watched a cooking show in my life.
Yeah, it's a current show.
Okay.
I think we might be doing season 4. I certainly hope so, because I want to put a deck on my house.
You have to make a Garindan at some point.
We did a Star Wars cake.
Oh.
That we for the finale of season 2 that we delivered to Galaxy's Edge, and Billy D. Williams was like a guest judge.
Ooh, that's cool.
That was great.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
That was fun.
Okay.
So yeah, check that out if you like. Actually, don't. That's not one of our.
We'll check the show out. Just check the show out. Yeah. You can find the episodes that you want to watch. And you're on TikTok.
Oh yeah, I'm not super active on TikTok, but I am on TikTok.
But you're there.
I don't know. I think it might just be my regular name. I don't know what I'm called on there.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to see me make like a jack-o'-lantern every day for all of October, I think that was the last time I was really active.
Great. So stay tuned for 10 months from now for the next October Pumpkin Fest. Anyway, all right. Well, listeners, you can find me also on TikTok at Star Wars Music Minute. All the social media platforms. Twitter is Star Wars Museman. If you are watching the Book of Boba Fett, they're on the Star Wars Music Minute YouTube channel, weekly live streams covering the music and sound of that. Also, you can leave a voice message at starwarsmusicminute.com/comlink and all the things. I didn't pull it up, so I'll read it next time, but there's a comment that someone emailed me, which you can email me at podcast@starwarsmusicminute.com. Someone emailed me a really nice analysis, a nice response to something that I want to read next time. But anyway, we'll be back. We'll be back. See, I talk so fast sometimes I just trip over my words.
Can't relate.
I will be back next week, and we will be talking about minutes 61 through 65 of Star Wars. And that's it. May the Force be with you. Bye.